Hey everyone, I'm here to help you relax and drift off tonight. If you enjoy using these videos to fall asleep, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more calming content. Share where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I'd love to know. Now settle into a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's start unwinding together. In the farthest reaches of a forgotten valley, cradled by ancient moss-draped pines and shrouded in perpetual mist, there lay a lake unlike any other. The locals called it Mirathine, a name that carried both reverence and quiet dread. It was said that the waters of Mirathine did not merely mirror the sky. They held within their depths the memories of strangers, echoes of lives lived long ago, and fragments of forgotten dreams. Those who gazed into its reflective surface sometimes saw not their own faces, but the eyes of someone else, a glimpse of joy, sorrow, or secret longing that was not their own. And so the legend endured, whispered from generation to generation, a tale of magic and melancholy, woven into the very fabric of the land. Lena Maris had always felt that there was something amiss in her quiet, ordered life. Living on the outskirts of a small town, she spent her days cataloging old photographs at the local archive, and her evenings wandering the rural trails, searching for meaning among the fading vestiges of the past. Her own memories, though warm and comforting, lacked the vivid intensity of the stories she read in musty journals. She yearned for an encounter with something extraordinary, an experience that could awaken the dormant corners of her heart. One crisp autumn morning, while combing through a collection of century-old diaries at the archive, Lena discovered a faded sketch of a lake with glassy, mirror-like water and a single inscription in flowing script. In its depths, not your reflection, but another's soul shall stir. The words sent shivers down her spine. Though she had heard whispered rumors of a mystical lake in the valley, she had dismissed them as fanciful lore meant to enchant children. Now, compelled by a mixture of curiosity and an inexplicable inner pull, Lena resolved to seek out this lake. Packing a small bag with a notebook, a camera, and an old thermos of herbal tea, she set off toward the unknown, determined to unearth the truth behind the legend of Mirathine. Lena's journey led her through winding country roads and dense stands of ancient trees, whose gnarled branches seemed to guard secret passages to other worlds. As she neared the valley, the landscape began to change. The air grew thick with humidity, and a mysterious mist clung to every surface. In the distance, the outline of the lake shimmered like a mirage, a vast expanse of still water nestled in a natural amphitheater of towering cliffs and whispering pines. By late afternoon, Lena arrived at the edge of Mirathine. She stood on a weathered stone path that curved along the lake's shore. The surface of the water was unnervingly smooth, reflecting the twilight sky with an almost surreal clarity. Yet as she peered into the depths, she felt a chill run through her, a sensation as though the lake were watching her, waiting to reveal its secrets. She took a deep breath and stepped closer. Lena settled onto a flat rock at the water's edge, setting her bag aside and pulling out her notebook. With a quiet anticipation, she gazed into the lake. For several long minutes, she saw only her own tentative expression reflected back. Then slowly and without warning, the surface shimmered, and a different face began to emerge, a face that was not her own. It was a young man with kind, sorrowful eyes that seemed to speak of a life filled with unspoken longing. His expression was wistful, as if caught in a moment of both joy and despair. Lena blinked, uncertain if her tired mind was playing tricks on her, but when she looked again, the face remained, as vivid as if it had been carved into the water itself. Trembling, Lena began to write in her notebook. The young man's eyes told a story she could not fully grasp, a tale of lost love, missed opportunities, and a lifetime of quiet resignation. She felt an inexplicable connection to him, as though his memories were calling out to awaken something buried deep within her. For hours, Lena sat by the lake, watching the shifting tableau. At times, the face would be joined by fleeting images, a scene of laughter beneath a summer sky, a tear-streaked farewell at a rain-drenched station, and moments of quiet reflection under a canopy of stars. Each glimpse was a window into another life, a collection of memories not her own, yet resonating with universal truths. Haunted by the mysterious reflections, Lena sought the wisdom of the local elders in the nearby town. In the dim light of a centuries-old library, she found an old volume of folklore and regional legends. There, amid pages yellowed by time, she discovered an account of Mirathine. According to the ancient text, the lake was formed by a great calamity centuries ago, a cataclysm that swept through the valley and claimed the lives of many. In the aftermath, as survivors wept for those lost, the lake became imbued with the collective memories of the fallen. It was said that the water held the essence of those who had passed, and that, on rare nights when the veil between worlds was thin, the lake would reflect not only the living, but also the dreams and regrets of those long gone. The text went on to say that anyone who looked into the lake with a pure heart might glimpse the memories of another, a gift that could offer solace, wisdom, or a haunting reminder of life's fragility. Yet the legend also carried a warning. To become too enraptured by these foreign recollections was to risk losing sight of one's own identity. Lena read these words with a mixture of awe and trepidation. She realized that the lake's magic was both a blessing and a curse, a mirror of collective memory that could illuminate the past while also ensnaring the present. Over the following days, Lena returned to Mirathine with a growing sense of purpose and unease. Each visit deepened her understanding of the lake's mysterious power. She began to notice subtle changes within herself. The more time she spent gazing into the reflective depths, the more she found herself haunted by memories that were not her own. At night, she dreamt vivid scenes that felt intimately real, a bittersweet summer romance, a final goodbye beneath a weeping willow, and a moment of profound solitude that echoed the quiet sorrow in the young man's eyes. Though these memories were not hers to claim, they wove themselves into the fabric of her being, altering the way she perceived her own life. Friends and acquaintances in the town started to remark on her distant look and the occasional tremor in her voice when she spoke of the lake. Some whispered that she had become entranced by its magic, losing herself in the allure of memories that were not truly hers. Lena, torn between wonder and apprehension, struggled to maintain a balance. She had come to Mirathine seeking inspiration, a way to break free from the monotony of her existence. But she was now confronted with the profound realization that to witness another's memories was to risk the erosion of one's own. As weeks turned into months, Lena's fascination with the lake's reflective powers deepened into an obsession. She meticulously documented every vision in her notebook, trying to piece together the fragmented narrative of the young man whose memories danced upon the surface. He appeared in different forms, sometimes youthful and hopeful, other times aged and weary, each incarnation offering tantalizing clues about a life marked by both beauty and tragedy. One particularly still night, under a sky ablaze with countless stars, Lena sat at the water's edge and experienced a vision that shattered her carefully maintained equilibrium. The lake's surface rippled as if stirred by an unseen hand, and the young man's face began to transform. His features softened, and in place of his sorrowful gaze, Lena saw a profound joy, a moment of unbridled happiness as he laughed, arms outstretched toward the heavens. In that fleeting instant, Lena felt a surge of emotion so intense that it left her breathless. It was as though the memory of his most cherished moment had washed over her, filling her with a warmth she had long forgotten. Yet with that joy came an overwhelming sense of loss. Lena realized that the beauty she witnessed was not her own. It belonged to someone else, a person whose life had been marked by both exquisite happiness and deep regret. The revelation struck her with the weight of 1,000 unspoken goodbyes, and she felt herself teetering on the edge of despair. Had she become so entranced by the allure of another's memories that she had begun to lose touch with her own? Haunted by the relentless pull of myrethine and determined to reclaim her sense of self, Lena sought the counsel of a reclusive old woman known simply as Irina. Irina was a keeper of local lore, a woman whose eyes seemed to hold the wisdom of generations. In a modest cottage at the edge of town, surrounded by fragrant herbs and faded tapestries, Irina listened intently as Lena recounted her experiences at the lake. The lake reflects not only the memories of those long past, Irina murmured, her voice soft as a lullaby, but it also reveals what we have long forgotten about ourselves. It is a mirror of the soul, offering both a glimpse into another's life and a reflection of our innermost desires. Irina explained that to be captivated by another's memories was a double-edged gift. Your heart, dear one, is not meant to carry the burdens of others indefinitely. The magic of myrethine is potent, and if you do not learn to draw strength from your own experiences, you risk losing the very essence that makes you who you are. Her words struck a chord deep within Lena. That night, as she sat alone by the lake, she vowed to embark on a journey of self-discovery, a quest to rediscover her own memories, her own joys and sorrows, separate from the foreign recollections that had so ensnared her. She began to write letters to herself, recording her present thoughts, dreams, and the minutiae of her everyday life. Slowly, she sought to stitch together a tapestry of personal memory that could counterbalance the overwhelming allure of the lake's reflections. In the process of reclaiming her identity, Lena began to notice a subtle transformation. The once disorienting visions from the lake started to merge with her own recollections. She found herself reinterpreting the emotions she had witnessed in the young man's memories through the lens of her own experiences. His laughter, once foreign and distant, became a reminder of a childhood spent dancing in sunlit meadows. His sorrow echoed the quiet laments of loss she had known all too well. One cool, dewy evening, as she sat with pen in hand on the bank of Myrethine, Lena experienced a profound moment of clarity. Gazing into the water, she saw not a single isolated memory, but a confluence of lives. Hers, the young man's, and countless others interwoven in a silent, ceaseless dance. The lake was a repository of collective remembrance, a living mosaic where every drop of water held a story. And in that vast mosaic, Lena recognized that her own story was an indispensable piece. Embracing this revelation, Lena began to reconcile with the dual nature of the lake's magic. She understood that while it was possible to be touched by the memories of another, it was equally possible to honor one's own journey by allowing those memories to serve as inspiration rather than as a substitute for lived experience. With renewed determination, she resolved to integrate the lessons of the past with the vibrant possibilities of the present. As the seasons changed and the mists over Myrethine lifted with the arrival of spring, Lena's transformation became evident not only to herself but to those around her. Her once tormented eyes now sparkled with a gentle wisdom, and her writings, filled with reflections on memory, loss, and renewal, began to resonate with a wide audience. People from nearby villages traveled to hear her speak of the mystical lake and its power to reveal both the beauty and the burdens of memory. At a gathering held on the lake's edge during a moonlit night, Lena recounted her journey to a captivated audience. Under the star-strewn sky, with the soft lapping of water as their only accompaniment, she spoke of the danger of losing oneself in another's memories and the profound liberation that comes from embracing one's own past. Listeners wept, laughed, and found solace in her words, as if the lake's ancient magic had finally been harnessed for healing. Years later, Lena's story became a cherished part of the local lore. Mirathene, once a place of whispered mysteries, transformed into a beacon for seekers of truth and healing. The lake continued to reflect the memories of those who gazed upon it, but now its magic was seen as a tool for introspection, a way for people to confront their inner landscapes and rediscover the forgotten parts of themselves. Lena herself remained a steadfast guardian of the lake's legacy. In a modest cottage near the water's edge, she continued to write and mentor young dreamers, urging them to honor their own memories while learning from the echoes of others. Her writings, imbued with the wisdom of both joy and sorrow, served as a reminder that every soul is a tapestry woven from myriad moments, each as precious and irreplaceable as the next. On a serene morning, when the first blush of dawn painted the sky in hues of rose and gold, Lena sat by Mirathene with a cup of steaming tea in hand. As she watched the gentle ripples across the lake's surface, she recognized that the water held not just the memories of others, but also the promise of new beginnings. In that reflective pool, the past and the present dance in an eternal embrace, each feeding into the other to create something timeless. In that quiet moment of solitude, Lena felt a profound gratitude for the journey she had undertaken. A journey that had led her through the labyrinth of foreign recollections and back into the sanctuary of her own heart. She knew that the lake would always reflect someone else's memories, yet it would also mirror the dreams and hopes of every person who dared to look within. And in that delicate interplay, the true magic of Mirathene would live on, as a testament to the enduring power of memory, identity, and the inexhaustible beauty of life. In the heart of an aging city where time itself seemed to wear thin beneath the weight of history, there circulated a legend as persistent as the ticking of a clock. It was said that in a forgotten building, a crumbling mansion on the edge of an overgrown park, there existed a room with a power beyond mortal ken. This room, shrouded in dust and memory, was rumored to freeze time for its lone occupant. Those who entered would find the world beyond its walls suspended in a silent tableau. Birds forever mid-flight, leaves caught in the stillness of a breeze that never came, and the relentless passage of seconds halted like a paused heartbeat. This mysterious chamber was both a sanctuary and a prison, a place where one could escape the ravages of time only to be forever isolated from its flow. And so the tale endured. A bittersweet promise of eternal pause, whispered in quiet corners and immortalized in faded diaries. Adrian Blackwood was a man defined by his restless curiosity and a heart burdened with the weight of untold loss. A writer by trade and a seeker by nature, he had spent years scouring abandoned archives and neglected corridors in search of inspiration. When news reached him of an old mansion in the outskirts of the city, a once grand estate now reduced to crumbling walls and overgrown ivy, Adrian felt an irresistible pull. Rumors abounded of secret rooms and hidden passages, and among them, one peculiar story ignited his imagination, a room that could stop time. One fog-laden afternoon, Adrian arrived at the mansion, its imposing facade a relic of a bygone era. The building groaned with memories as he stepped over shattered marble and weathered stone. With his notebook clutched tightly in hand, he wandered through silent halls lined with dusty portraits and antique furnishings, each whispering secrets of the past. In a narrow corridor at the far end of the mansion, behind a partially collapsed wall draped in cobwebs, he discovered an unassuming door with intricate carvings that hinted at hidden mysteries. The door, almost inconspicuous among the decay, bore an inscription in faded ink. For those who dare to hold the moment, time shall yield. Adrian's heart quickened. With trembling anticipation, he turned the rusted knob and stepped inside. The room beyond was unlike any other he had encountered. Dimly lit by the wan light filtering through a solitary high window, it was furnished with relics of comfort, a plush armchair, a small writing desk, and a delicate dust-covered clock that hung upon a wall. The air was cool and heavy with a palpable stillness. As Adrian crossed the threshold, an almost imperceptible shift seemed to occur. The ambient sounds of the mansion, the distant creaks of settling wood, the whisper of wind against broken glass, fell away, replaced by a profound silence that enveloped him. He settled into the armchair, placing his notebook on the desk, and gazed around with wide-eyed wonder. Outside the window, he could see only the inky blackness of the night beyond. Yet something was off. The faint glow of streetlights and the rhythmic pulse of distant traffic had vanished into an eerie calm. In that suspended moment, Adrian realized that he was alone, not only in the room but in a world where time itself had ceased to flow. As minutes, or perhaps hours, stretched into an eternity, Adrian discovered the true nature of the room. Every second he spent within its confines brought a profound sense of both peace and isolation. He reached for the clock, expecting its hands to march forward, but found them utterly still, locked in an endless moment. Outside the window, the city was reduced to a still life painting. A single car paused mid-motion on a rain-soaked street, a lamppost frozen in its vigil, and shadows suspended in the gloom. At first, the silence was a balm to his weary soul, a reprieve from the relentless march of time that had taken so much from him. In this suspended sanctuary, Adrian could revisit memories long faded, ponder the infinite possibilities of a moment unburdened by tomorrow, and write without the urgency of deadlines. He began to scribble feverishly in his notebook, capturing fragments of his past, the echoes of his dreams, and the delicate interplay between memory and desire. Yet as the hours wore on, the initial wonder gave way to a creeping sense of isolation. The very gift that allowed him to hold on to time now revealed its curse. In this room, the world had stopped, and with it, all possibility of change or renewal. Adrian's thoughts turned inward as he realized that the pause, however alluring, came with a steep price. While he could bask in the perfection of a single moment, he was also trapped, his life reduced to an endless loop of stillness, forever isolated from the evolution of the world outside. Haunted by the paradox of his predicament, Adrian began to experiment within the confines of the room. He moved about slowly, opening the heavy drapes to peer out at a frozen panorama. Every detail outside was suspended in an almost surreal clarity. A droplet of rain paused mid-fall, its crystalline shape reflecting a shard of moonlight. A solitary pedestrian stood immobile on the sidewalk, their expression locked in a moment of silent introspection, and time itself seemed to hold its breath in a suspended animation. As he explored, Adrian recorded his observations with meticulous care. He noted the minutiae of the halted world, capturing each frozen detail in words that danced on the page. But as he continued his study, he sensed that the room was not merely a passive container of stillness. It was alive with an enigmatic energy, a presence that pulsed beneath the surface of the quiet. There were moments when he could almost hear the soft, rhythmic ticking of a clock, a distant heartbeat that seemed to echo the very pulse of existence. Yet whenever he reached out to find its source, the sound would vanish into the silence. During one of these moments of introspection, Adrian began to perceive subtle changes within himself. Without the constant rush of time, his thoughts slowed to a meditative cadence. He found himself reflecting on long-forgotten dreams and lost opportunities, re-examining the choices that had led him to this point. In the timeless cocoon of the room, every regret and every cherished memory was rendered with exquisite clarity. And though the experience was at times overwhelming, it also offered him the rare chance to confront the essence of his being without distraction. Days, if they could still be called days, melted into one another within the room. Adrian's initial euphoria gave way to a deep and pervasive melancholy. As he lingered in the suspended moment, he began to understand that the room's gift was a double-edged sword. The power to freeze time, to capture an everlasting moment, came with the harsh reality that nothing ever truly changes. While the room offered an escape from the relentless progression of life, it also robbed him of growth, of the evolution that made living so precious. One evening, as he sat by the desk writing down his reflections, Adrian encountered a vision, a memory perhaps, or a fragment of another soul. In the corner of the room, almost imperceptible in the dim light, he saw the ghostly outline of a figure. The shape was vague and shifting, as though composed of mist and memory, but its presence was undeniable. It moved slowly, as if drawn by the very stillness of the space, and seemed to be searching for something lost. Adrian watched, transfixed, as the specter drifted toward the door. For a fleeting moment, he wondered if the figure might be another soul trapped by the room's magic, or perhaps the very spirit of the room itself, a keeper of its secrets and sorrows. The apparition lingered at the threshold before fading into the silence. This silent encounter left Adrian with a deep sense of longing and fear. He realized that in freezing time, the room not only halted the outside world, but also severed the ties that bound one to the natural flow of life, and with them, the very essence of human connection. Torn between the seductive lure of eternal stillness and the harsh inevitability of change, Adrian reached a crossroads. The room had become both a sanctuary and a prison. Here he could bask in the perfection of a single unchanging moment, but at the cost of never experiencing the transformative power of time. The world outside, though frozen now, held the promise of new beginnings, growth, and the bittersweet beauty of impermanence. In restless nights filled with internal debate, Adrian considered what it would mean to leave the room. Could he ever return to a world where moments passed and life moved forward? What would become of his memories, his work, his very self, after having been suspended in timeless solitude? The thought of rejoining a world that had marched on without him was both exhilarating and terrifying. Driven by these questions, he began to search for a mechanism, a hidden switch or a subtle change in the room that might allow him to thaw the frozen hours and rejoin the flow of time. He scrutinized every detail, the unyielding clock that refused to tick, the heavy drapes that shrouded the window, and even the peculiar hum that sometimes vibrated through the floorboards. Yet the room offered no obvious exit from its eternal pause. In the midst of his despair, a realization began to take shape. The room, with all its mystery and power, was not an arbitrary prison, but a deliberate creation. Somewhere in the depths of its design lay a clue to its purpose, and perhaps a way to unlock the door to renewed life. One quiet morning, if it could be called morning in a place where time did not flow, Adrian discovered a hidden compartment behind the writing desk. Buried beneath a stack of old journals was a small leather-bound notebook. Its pages were filled with the careful, looping script of someone who had once understood the room's secret. The entries spoke of an architect of time, a brilliant, enigmatic soul who had constructed the room not as a means of imprisonment, but as a sanctuary for those who needed to pause and reflect before re-entering the relentless stream of life. The notebook explained that the room was imbued with a delicate balance. It could preserve a moment indefinitely, but only if the occupant chose to remain lost within it. To break free, one had to perform a small, deliberate act, a symbolic gesture of letting go. The author wrote of a ritual, to leave behind an object of personal significance, a token of one's past, as a sacrifice to time itself. In doing so, the magic of the room would recede, and the flow of life outside would be restored. Torn by conflicting desires, Adrian pondered the meaning of this revelation. The notebook was both a promise and a warning. To regain the gift of time was to accept the pain of loss and the inevitability of change. Yet if he stayed, he risked fading into the timeless void. a ghost forever trapped between what had been and what might never be. After many sleepless hours of contemplation, Adrian resolved to embrace change. With a heavy heart and trembling hands, he retrieved from a battered drawer the pocket watch that had once belonged to his father, a cherished memento of a time filled with love and fleeting joy. Its surface was etched with memories of laughter, conversations, and moments that had defined his youth. Though he had clung to it for comfort, the watch now represented the very essence of life's impermanence. In a solemn ritual, Adrian placed the watch in the center of the room on a small pedestal. He recited a quiet prayer, thanking the past for its gifts and acknowledging that the only way forward was to let go. As he spoke, the room's atmosphere began to shift. The stagnant air stirred with an almost imperceptible breeze, and the heavy silence yielded to a soft, rhythmic ticking, the sound of time reawakening. Slowly, the clock on the wall stirred to life. Its hands began their delicate dance, marking seconds that had long been denied. Outside the window, the frozen tableau of the city shimmered as if in anticipation of rebirth. The magic of the room was receding, and with it, the eternal pause that had held Adrian captive. With the room's enchantment lifted, Adrian stepped to the threshold and opened the heavy door. The moment he crossed the threshold, he felt the rush of time as if emerging from a long, deep sleep. The air was alive with movement. A sudden gust of wind carried the sound of distant chatter, and the muted hum of the city began to swell around him. Outside, the world was in full motion, a tapestry of life continuing unabated. Yet as he walked through the corridor of the old mansion, Adrian sensed that nothing would ever be the same. His heart was filled with a bittersweet mixture of sorrow for what he had left behind and hope for what lay ahead. The experience in the timeless room had transformed him. He had seen the value of a single, suspended moment and the price that must be paid to rejoin the flow of life. In that transformation lay the eternal truth that change, however painful, is the essence of existence. Returning to the bustling world outside the mansion, Adrian found that the passage of time had resumed its steady cadence. Days flowed into nights, seasons changed, and the once frozen city now moved with renewed vigor. He felt both an outsider and an insider, as though he held a secret that few could comprehend, a secret of a room where time could be halted and yet must eventually be set free. Inspired by his profound journey, Adrian returned to his writing. His stories, infused with the delicate interplay of memory and change, captivated readers who found in his words the quiet promise that every moment is precious precisely because it is fleeting. In lectures and intimate gatherings, he spoke of the mysterious room, not as a fantastical escape, but as a metaphor for the human condition, a reminder that while it is natural to yearn for the preservation of beautiful moments, the true beauty of life lies in its constant, unyielding motion. Years later, long after the memory of the timeless room had faded into the annals of his past, Adrian Blackwood's writings continued to inspire a generation of dreamers and seekers. His best-selling novel, The Room of Frozen Time, became a testament to the fragile balance between holding on and letting go. A narrative that resonated deeply with anyone who had ever wished to pause a perfect moment. And sometimes on quiet evenings, when the world seemed to slow its relentless pace, people would gather near old, abandoned buildings and speak in hushed tones of a mysterious chamber where time once froze. They would recall the legend of the room that allowed one to live forever in a single moment, and the brave soul who sacrificed his tether to the past in order to embrace the promise of tomorrow. In every tick of a clock, in every shifting shadow and passing breeze, the legacy of that enchanted room lived on. It reminded all who listened that while moments may be suspended in the delicate fabric of memory, the true miracle of life is found in the continual unfolding of time. And so, in the grand, ever-changing tapestry of existence, every second is a gift, a reminder that to live fully means to accept both the beauty of the present and the inevitability of change. In a forgotten valley shrouded by ancient woods and draped in perpetual dusk, there was a legend that whispered of a miracle hidden from the light. The tale spoke of a singular flower, a bloom so rare that it could only be seen when the world was draped in darkness. It was said that the flower, known among the old folk as the nocturne blossom, held within its petals the secrets of sorrow and hope, a fragile reminder that beauty is sometimes born from the deepest shadows. For centuries, the story of the nocturne blossom had been passed down through hushed voices and faded manuscripts, igniting the hearts of dreamers and the curious alike. Mara Bellamy had grown up with stories of the elusive blossom. In her small village at the edge of the ancient forest, tales of the flower were as common as the rustling of leaves in a gentle wind. Yet while others dismissed it as mere folklore, Mara, ever the seeker of hidden wonders, felt a magnetic pull toward the legend. In her youth, she would lie awake on starlit nights, imagining a flower that defied the constraints of daylight, its radiance a secret reserved only for those who dared to venture into the night. Now, as an adult burdened by the monotony of daily life and the loss of dreams once held dear, Mara found herself yearning for something transcendent. The weight of forgotten hopes pressed upon her, and the memory of childhood wonder began to fade like the last light of dusk. One cool autumn evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the first true darkness settled over the land, Mara resolved to uncover the truth behind the legend. She packed a small bag with a notebook, a vial of water, and a lantern whose flame would be her only companion through the night. With a determined heart and a mind filled with possibility, she stepped into the ancient forest, guided only by the soft murmur of the wind and the promise of something extraordinary. The forest was a realm unto itself, a labyrinth of towering trees and winding trails, where shadows danced in the gaps between branches and the air carried a hint of magic. As Mara ventured deeper, the world she knew began to dissolve into mystery. The chatter of daytime creatures faded, replaced by the subtle rustle of nocturnal life and the steady rhythm of her own heartbeat. Every step was an exploration into both the physical darkness and the hidden corners of her soul. The deeper she wandered, the more the forest seemed to come alive. Faint luminescence clung to dew-laden spiderwebs, and the distant call of an owl resonated like a solemn hymn. Mara felt an uncanny sense of being watched, not in malice, but as though the forest itself were an ancient guardian, silently acknowledging her quest. It was during these solitary hours that she recalled the legend, the flower that only blooms when all is dark, its petals opening to reveal a delicate radiance that no sun could ever bestow. With each step, Mara's anticipation grew. She paused by a babbling brook to record her thoughts in her notebook, sketching the interplay of light and shadow on water. The forest whispered its own secrets, and in that murmuring symphony, she began to sense that she was nearing something long forgotten, a threshold between the known world and a realm of dreams. After hours of wandering, the forest began to reveal subtle signs that pointed the way. At a small clearing surrounded by ancient oaks, Mara discovered a patch of peculiar soil that glowed faintly in the dark. The ground was soft, as though it had not been trodden for many moons, and nestled within the earth was a cluster of silvery leaves. Though no flower had yet revealed itself, this unusual sight stirred a quiet certainty within her. She was close. She carefully knelt, brushing aside the delicate foliage, and found beneath it a small, carved stone with symbols that resonated with the tales of the nocturne blossom. The inscription, worn by time yet still legible to those who cared to look, read, "In darkness, all forgotten dreams awaken. Let the night reveal what the day cannot." A shiver ran down Mara's spine as she realized that the forest itself was marking her path. The stone was not merely a relic of a past age, but a signpost pointing toward a destiny long deferred. With renewed purpose, she tucked the stone safely into her bag and pressed on, following an invisible trail woven through the murmuring trees and silvery mists. As night deepened into a velvet darkness, punctuated by countless stars, Mara's journey led her to a secluded glen. Here the forest opened into a natural amphitheater, where ancient stone formations rose like the remnants of a lost civilization. In the center of the glen, bathed in the gentle glow of the moon and the soft shimmer of bioluminescent fungi, lay a narrow pool of water. The air was cool and still, heavy with the scent of damp earth and secrets. It was in this ethereal setting that Mara first beheld the faint outline of a blossom, a delicate, otherworldly shape that seemed to hover above the water's surface. As she drew nearer, the details became clearer. Petals of translucent midnight blue unfurled slowly, their edges tinged with silver. The flower was unlike any she had ever seen, a marvel that existed solely in the embrace of night. With trembling hands, she reached out as if to touch its fragile beauty, but the blossom remained just out of reach, as though respecting the sanctity of its hidden domain. For a long, silent moment, Mara stood entranced. The nocturne blossom seemed to pulse with an inner light, each beat echoing the rhythm of her own heart. In that quiet communion, she felt her sorrows and regrets dissolve into the cool night air. It was as if the flower had the power to awaken not only forgotten dreams, but also a deep, transformative hope. A promise that even in darkness, beauty and renewal could be found. The hours passed slowly as Mara remained in the glen, watching the flower's gradual awakening. As the moon reached its zenith, the blossom began to fully bloom. Its petals slowly spread, revealing a complex tapestry of luminescent hues that shifted and shimmered with every subtle movement of the night breeze. The air around it vibrated with a gentle, almost musical hum, a sound that seemed to rise from the depths of the earth and mingle with the quiet murmur of the forest. In that moment, Mara understood that the nocturne blossom was more than a rare botanical marvel. It was a living metaphor for the nature of forgotten dreams. Just as the flower emerged in the darkness when no other light could compete, so too could the hidden desires and lost hopes of a weary heart be reborn when given the space to bloom. The realization filled her with a profound sense of clarity and purpose. Mara took careful notes and made delicate sketches of the flower, determined to capture every nuance of its ephemeral beauty. She felt as if she were witnessing a secret that the world had long forgotten, a moment of raw, unguarded truth that spoke of resilience, renewal, and the quiet power of the night. In the days that followed, Mara returned to the glen often, drawn by the memory of that transcendent night. The nocturne blossom, true to its mysterious nature, did not appear every night. It only bloomed when the conditions were just right, when the veil between the tangible and the ephemeral was at its thinnest. Each time she visited, Mara found herself changed in subtle ways. The experiences she gathered under the cloak of darkness began to seep into her waking life, infusing her days with a sense of wonder and possibility that had long been absent. She began to share her story in whispered conversations at the local market and in quiet gatherings at the village inn. Many listened with skeptical eyes, yet others, touched by the vulnerability in her words, confessed that they too had once held dreams that had faded into the background of everyday existence. In time, Mara's account of the flower that only blooms in darkness became a beacon, a reminder that even in the midst of life's relentless brightness, there lay hidden depths of beauty waiting to be uncovered. Emboldened by her experiences, Mara decided to embrace the lessons of the nocturne blossom. She embarked on a personal quest to reclaim the dreams and passions that had been buried beneath the burdens of routine and responsibility. With renewed vigor, she dusted off old journals filled with unfinished stories and sketches of ideas once brimming with promise. The quiet glow of the memories awakened by the flower stirred her creativity, and soon she found herself writing with a fervor that surprised even her. Her writings, imbued with the mystique of that enchanted night, began to resonate with others. Letters poured in from distant towns and cities, testimonies from those who had felt the same yearning to reconnect with dreams lost in the glare of everyday life. Mara's work became a celebration of the quiet magic that dwells in the darkness, a tribute to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of hope. Years passed, and Mara's tale grew into local legend. The glen, once a secluded haven, known only to a few, began to draw seekers of all kinds. Those who had heard of the flower that bloomed only in darkness and hoped to catch a glimpse of its mysterious radiance. The villagers, inspired by Mara's journey, began to honor the legacy of the nocturne blossom with an annual midnight festival. On the longest night of the year, when the sky was clearest and the stars shone brightest, the people gathered in the glen to share their own dreams, to recite poetry, and to celebrate the beauty of rebirth in the quiet of the dark. Mara, now older and wise with the passage of time, watched as her story intertwined with that of the flower. In the gentle murmur of the night, in the soft glow of lanterns and the shared laughter of newfound hope, she saw the reflection of the nocturne blossom in every heart. It had become more than a rare bloom. It was a symbol of the possibility that even the most deeply buried dreams could be awakened when nurtured with care, courage, and a willingness to embrace the night. On a crisp winter evening, many years later, Mara stood once more in the ancient glen. The forest was silent under a blanket of freshly fallen snow, and the moon hung low in the sky, casting long silver shadows across the ground. In that stillness, as if summoned by the quiet promise of the night, a single flower began to stir. Petals of luminous midnight blue slowly unfurled from a bud that had waited patiently through the long, dark hours. The nocturne blossom had come to life again, a final, timeless testament to the enduring truth that even in the deepest darkness, beauty can bloom. Mara felt a tear of gratitude slip down her cheek as she knelt beside the flower. In its fragile, radiant presence, she recognized the endless cycle of loss and renewal, of forgotten dreams and the quiet triumph of rediscovery. The flower that only blooms in darkness had unlocked within her a legacy of hope, a promise that, as long as there were hearts brave enough to seek out the hidden wonders of the night, no dream would ever truly be lost. And so, under the watchful gaze of countless stars, Mara whispered a quiet vow to the wind, that she would carry the memory of that enchanted bloom within her, nurturing it with every word she wrote and every dream she dared to reclaim. For in the silent embrace of the night, the true magic of the nocturne blossom and of all forgotten dreams would forever live on. In the fading light of autumn, when dusk draped the old town in a veil of melancholy and mystery, there existed a legend passed down in murmurs and half-remembered lullabies. It was said that beyond the bustling streets and lively markets, spanning a gentle river that wound through the heart of the town, there lay an ancient bridge. Unlike any other, this bridge possessed a secret. When the world fell silent and no living soul lingered in its vicinity, it would begin to sing, not with the clamor of a busy day or the clatter of ordinary life, but with a soft, haunting melody, one that evoked memories of joy and sorrow, of dreams both lost and found. And so, for generations, the bridge's song became a mystery, a bittersweet refrain that beckoned the curious and comforted the forlorn. Eleanor Graves had always felt drawn to the quiet corners of her hometown, where secrets lived in the rustle of leaves and the ripple of water. Working as a caretaker at the local museum, she was well acquainted with the town's legends, but none fascinated her more than the tale of the singing bridge. As a child, she would sneak out on moonlit nights, following the distant echo of a melody that seemed to float on the cool breeze. Over the years, life had drawn her away from such whims, yet the memory of that elusive song continued to tug at her heart. One particularly still evening, after a day filled with the weight of unspoken regrets, Eleanor found herself wandering along the riverbank. The town had quieted to an almost eerie silence, and a delicate mist had begun to curl over the water. And then, as if summoned by her longing, she heard it, a faint, otherworldly tune drifting from the direction of the old stone bridge. It was soft and wistful, a lullaby of a time forgotten, and it stirred in her a hope she thought was long buried. The bridge itself was a relic from an era when craftsmanship was an art, and each stone bore the memory of its maker. Weathered by centuries and softened by the gentle embrace of nature, the arching structure spanned the river like a graceful bow. By day, it was merely a pathway for hurried footsteps, but as night fell and the town slipped into slumber, the bridge seemed to awaken with a secret life of its own. Drawn by the call of the song, Eleanor approached the bridge with cautious steps. The closer she came, the more vivid the melody became, a cascade of notes that rose and fell like the flow of the river beneath. Standing in the center of the span, she listened intently. The music was not loud or forceful, it was tender and sorrowful, as though it carried the weight of countless untold stories. For a long moment, she closed her eyes and let the song wash over her, feeling the gentle vibration of sound resonate with the quiet chambers of her soul. In the days that followed, Eleanor could not shake the memory of that night. She began to seek out the whispers of the past, gathering fragments of lore from the town's oldest residents and poring over faded manuscripts in the dusty corners of the library. According to local legend, the bridge was built by a master mason whose heart was shattered by the loss of a beloved. It was said that in his anguish, he carved into the stone a secret, a promise that his sorrow would live on in the song of the bridge, offering solace to those who, like him, had lost something precious. Some elders claimed that the melody was the echo of forgotten dreams, a gentle reminder that even in loneliness, there was beauty. Others spoke of it as the voice of the river itself, mourning the passage of time and the inevitable changes it wrought. For Eleanor, each version of the tale deepened the mystery, and she became determined to understand not only the song, but its meaning in her own life, a life marked by loss, regret, and the slow fading of youthful hope. On a crisp, starlit night, Eleanor returned to the bridge, her heart pounding with both trepidation and anticipation. As she stepped onto the ancient stones, the familiar melody began to rise once more, its notes shimmering in the cool night air. This time, she carried with her a small notebook and a pen, determined to capture every nuance of the sound. As the melody swelled, vivid images began to unfurl in her mind. She saw flashes of laughter echoing along cobblestone streets, the vibrant hues of sunsets long past, and faces of those who had once shared her dreams. With each note, the bridge seemed to conjure moments that had slipped away like water through her fingers. The music was both a balm and a bittersweet reminder, a symphony of memories that spanned the breadth of her own heart. In that moment of communion with the unseen forces of the night, Eleanor felt a stirring within her. The song was not merely a relic of sorrow, it was an invitation, a call to reclaim the fragments of her life that had been lost in the rush of everyday existence. Tears welled in her eyes as the melody reached a crescendo, as though urging her to remember who she once was and to dare to dream again. Word of the singing bridge had always been shrouded in myth, but that night, Eleanor's experience stirred something else in the depths of the ancient structure. As the last notes of the song faded into the night, a figure emerged from the shadows near the river's edge. At first, she thought it was her imagination, a trick of the dim light and her own yearning. But as the figure drew nearer, it became clear that it was real. An elderly man, dressed in a worn overcoat and carrying a small lantern that cast gentle light upon his kindly face. Introducing himself as Marcus, he explained that he had been the keeper of the bridge for many years, a guardian of its secrets and its song. Marcus told Eleanor that the bridge was not merely an inanimate relic. It was a living testament to the dreams and sorrows of all who had passed through the town. In its song, he said, lay the voices of the forgotten, each note a memory yearning to be heard. He had dedicated his life to preserving that melody, believing that it held the power to heal wounded hearts and remind people of the beauty in both joy and grief. Marcus's gentle words and warm smile offered Eleanor a sense of comfort. In him, she saw a kindred spirit, someone who understood that the passage of time was as much about loss as it was about renewal. Under the soft glow of the lantern, he invited her to join him in tending to the bridge's legacy, to listen to its song and let it guide her toward rediscovering the dreams she had once cherished. In the months that followed, Eleanor visited the bridge nightly. With Marcus as her guide, she learned to discern the subtle shifts in the melody, the delicate changes that corresponded with the ebb and flow of the town's collective memory. Sometimes the song was soft and wistful, like a lullaby sung in a forgotten language. Other times it was bold and uplifting, as though heralding the arrival of a new dawn. And always it carried an undercurrent of timeless wisdom, the reminder that every heart holds its own symphony, a blend of dreams, regrets, and quiet hope. As she sat on the cool stones of the bridge, notebook in hand, Eleanor began to record not only the music, but also her reflections. She wrote of the dreams that had once propelled her forward in youth, the aspirations of a writer whose pen could paint worlds, the promise of a love that felt as endless as the night sky. With each word, she felt a stirring of her old self, a gentle awakening of the creative spark that had been dimmed by the burdens of life. The bridge, in its silent majesty, became a mirror for her soul. Its song whispered that even when dreams seemed lost to the ravages of time, they were never truly gone. They were waiting to be unlocked, to be reclaimed by those with the courage to listen. In the quiet company of the river and the ancient stones, Eleanor began to see that the true magic of the bridge lay not in the novelty of its song, but in its power to remind people of the beauty of memory and the possibility of renewal. One evening, as winter crept slowly into the town and a light frost began to lace the edges of the river, the bridge's song took on an unexpected timbre. That night, as Eleanor sat in solitude, she heard not just the familiar notes of the melody, but a new haunting harmony, a counterpoint that resonated with both hope and sorrow. It was as if the bridge were singing of a future yet to be, a promise that even in the midst of loss, life would find a way to bloom once more. Moved by the layered beauty of the sound, Eleanor resolved to share the bridge's secret with others. Together with Marcus, she organized small gatherings along the riverbank, inviting townsfolk to experience the nightly concert of the ancient bridge. In the crisp stillness of these gatherings, under a canopy of stars, the community found solace in the shared experience. Strangers shed tears for dreams lost and rediscovered laughter for hopes rekindled, united by the bridge's timeless refrain. As the gatherings grew, so did the legend of the singing bridge. Stories emerged of people who, touched by its melody, found the courage to pursue long-forgotten passions or to mend fractured relationships. The bridge had become a symbol of transformation, a reminder that even when one felt alone in the silence, the echoes of forgotten dreams could sing anew and light the path toward healing. For Eleanor, the bridge's song eventually became a catalyst for profound personal change. Inspired by the melodies and the stories of those who had come to listen, she returned to her writing with renewed vigor, her pages filled with vivid descriptions of the night, the music, and the luminous interplay of memory and hope. In her words, the bridge transformed from a solitary relic into a living entity that breathed life into every heart it touched. Eleanor's first published work, a collection of short stories and poems titled The Song of the Bridge, captured the hearts of readers far and wide. It told the tale of a mystical structure that sang when no one was near, and of the people who found in its melody the strength to reclaim their own lost dreams. With every new reader who discovered her work, the legend of the singing bridge grew, spreading like a gentle ripple across the river of time. Years later, long after the first snow had melted into the flow of the river, Eleanor still returned to the bridge each night. Marcus, now a figure of memory himself, had passed on his guardianship to a new generation of keepers who understood that the true power of the bridge lay in its ability to connect hearts through the universal language of music and memory. Standing on the ancient stones, Eleanor listened to the bridge sing, a melody that was at once timeless and ever-changing, echoing the eternal dance of hope and sorrow. In that quiet, sacred space, she knew that every dream, no matter how forgotten, could be unlocked with a single, gentle key: the courage to remember. And so, as the bridge continued to sing its soft, haunting lullaby when no one was near, it served as a beacon for all those who believed in the power of dreams, a silent promise that even in the stillness of the night, beauty and possibility could be found, waiting just beyond the horizon of memory. In the quiet recesses of a town steeped in memory and myth, there circulated an old tale, a legend passed down through generations in hushed voices and faded letters. It was said that, once in a great while, a key would appear, forged in the twilight of forgotten hopes. This key, imbued with magic both gentle and fierce, possessed the extraordinary power to unlock doors not made of wood or stone, but the hidden portals of one's own heart. These portals led to realms where lost dreams lay dormant, waiting to be rediscovered and rekindled. For those who dared to use it, the key offered not only a glimpse of a past once cherished, but also the promise of a future reborn from the embers of forgotten aspirations. Eleanor Marlowe was a quiet soul whose days flowed in muted routine, working as a librarian in a town where the present was as familiar as the worn pages of her favorite books. She spent her evenings tending to a modest apartment inherited from her late grandmother. Among the scattered relics of the past, a collection of yellowed letters, old photographs, and treasured heirlooms, Elena discovered a curious object hidden in a dusty chest in the attic. Wrapped in a faded silk scarf was an intricately wrought key. Its surface was etched with delicate filigree and mysterious symbols, as though it were crafted by hands that knew the language of dreams. At first, the key seemed like nothing more than an antique trinket, a vestige of a family history Elena had never fully understood. Yet as she held it in her palm, a soft warmth emanated from the metal as if it recognized her touch. That night, as she lay in bed with the key resting on her nightstand, Elena felt the pull of an unknown force, a beckoning from deep within, urging her to remember the dreams she had long since buried beneath the weight of everyday life. Sleep came slowly that night, and when it did, it was filled with vivid, kaleidoscopic visions. Elena dreamed of a vast starlit corridor lined with countless doors, each glowing with its own inner light. In the dream, she wandered through the corridor until she reached one door that shone brighter than the rest. It was locked with a mechanism that looked eerily similar to the key in her hand. As she inserted the key into the lock, a rush of memories, childhood laughter, secret wishes whispered to the night. The brilliance of possibilities long ago imagined flooded her senses. The door swung open, and for a moment, Elena felt as though she could step into a world where every forgotten dream was alive again. Upon waking, she found the key still resting on her bedside table, its cool metal now tinged with an inexplicable glow in the morning light. The dream, so vivid and real, left her with an aching curiosity. What if this key truly could unlock more than just physical doors? What if it held the power to release the dreams and aspirations she had silently locked away over the years? Driven by a newfound determination, Elena began to explore the deeper corners of her home, searching for that elusive door which might hide the remnants of her forgotten self. In a narrow hallway behind a heavy wardrobe, she discovered a door she had never noticed before. Its surface was worn by time, and the handle bore the same intricate design as the key. With trembling hands, she inserted the key into the lock. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, with a soft click, the door swung open. Beyond it lay a small, dimly lit room that seemed suspended in time. The air was thick with the scent of old paper and the faint, sweet fragrance of lilacs. Shelves lined the walls, each filled with delicate, handwritten journals, sketches, and letters. As Elena stepped inside, she felt as though she were entering a sanctum of her own soul, one where every page told the story of dreams once held dear. She recognized passages describing wild ambitions of youth, secret poems written under the glow of a moonlit sky, and plans for a life filled with art, adventure, and deep connection. In that hidden room, Elena discovered that her grandmother, too, had once been a dreamer, a woman who had envisioned a world of beauty and wonder, but had seen her own hopes stifled by circumstance. The room became a bridge linking past and present, inviting Elena to reclaim the fragments of herself that had been lost in time. Over the following weeks, Elena found herself drawn back to the secret room night after night. With the key as her guide, she unlocked further compartments within her home, and in doing so, within her heart. In the attic, behind stacks of forgotten furniture, she uncovered an old mirror framed in ornate silver. Gazing into its reflective surface, she saw not just her present self, but also images of a younger Elena, vibrant, hopeful, and unburdened by the cynicism that life had slowly imposed upon her. Each reflection was a window into a time when she believed that every dream was possible, when the future shimmered with endless promise. Her journal soon overflowed with sketches and writings inspired by these rediscovered memories. Each entry was a step toward healing, a stitch in the tapestry of her identity that had frayed over the years. With every unlocked memory, Elena felt the weight of regret lift, replaced by a tender, bittersweet understanding that while dreams might fade, they never truly die. Instead, they lie dormant, waiting for the key of remembrance to awaken them once more. Yet as the key unlocked the doors to forgotten dreams, Elena began to notice a subtle change in her waking life. The more she embraced the lost fragments of her past, the more she found herself drawn into a liminal space where reality and memory blurred. At times, she would catch fleeting images of those very dreams in the mirror of a window or in the smile of a stranger on the street. It was as if the dreams she had reclaimed were seeping into the present, imbuing her daily life with an otherworldly quality. Friends and neighbors remarked on the change in her demeanor, a sparkle in her eyes and an enthusiasm that had long been absent. But with this transformation came an undercurrent of melancholy. Elena realized that by unlocking her forgotten dreams, she was also forced to confront the choices she had made, the opportunities that had been lost, the paths not taken. The key did not simply restore beauty and wonder. It also brought with it the sharp pain of regret and the sorrow of what might have been. One autumn evening, as rain pattered against the window pane and the wind whispered through the streets, Elena sat in the secret room and opened a journal she had never seen before. Its pages chronicled the life of a young woman who had once harbored dreams of revolutionizing the arts, of building a sanctuary for creativity and hope. The entries spoke of passion and promise, but ended abruptly with the final, anguished lines of a soul overwhelmed by the burden of lost ambition. As Elena read, she felt tears slip silently down her cheeks. In that moment, she understood that the key in unlocking forgotten dreams exacted a price, a toll on the heart that demanded both courage and sacrifice. The room around her seemed to pulse with the memories of every soul who had once dared to dream. She could sense the lingering echoes of laughter and the quiet, desperate yearning of hopes unfulfilled. The realization was as profound as it was heartbreaking. To reclaim forgotten dreams was to accept that some memories, no matter how cherished, carried an inevitable sorrow. Yet even as the pain threatened to overwhelm her, Elena recognized that in the act of remembering, she was also reclaiming the strength to create anew. In the days that followed, Elena began to weave the lessons of her rediscovered past into her present. She started small, painting vibrant canvases inspired by the hues of sunrise, writing poems that captured the fleeting beauty of a shared smile, and meeting with old friends to reminisce about adventures once dreamed of. Each act of creation became a tribute to the forgotten dreams that had shaped her, a testament to the enduring power of hope, even in the face of loss. Slowly, Elena learned to balance the bittersweet nature of her memories with the vibrancy of the life she now lived. The key, once a mysterious relic confined to the attic, had become a symbol of transformation, a tangible reminder that even the most deeply buried dreams could be resurrected if one had the courage to face them. With time, she realized that the key unlocked not only the past but also a future brimming with untapped potential. Encouraged by the quiet triumphs of her inner journey, Elena decided to share her revelations with the world. She organized an exhibition at the local community center, a celebration of art, memory, and the resilience of the human spirit. The gallery was transformed into a living tapestry of dreams, photographs of forgotten landscapes, paintings that captured the ephemeral glow of hope, and handwritten excerpts from journals that told stories of both triumph and sorrow. On the opening night, people from all walks of life gathered to witness the unfolding narrative of lost and reclaimed dreams. As they moved from one display to another, the visitors found themselves transported into the rich, emotional landscapes that Elena had so lovingly curated. They marveled at the delicate interplay of light and shadow in each piece, the subtle yet powerful reminder that every dream, no matter how faded, held within it the seeds of a new beginning. Elena's own journey became the centerpiece of the exhibition, a living story of how one person, armed with an ancient key, could unlock the forgotten corridors of the heart and breathe life back into the dreams that had once defined her. The event touched many, inspiring them to look inward and to rediscover the aspirations they had long since hidden away. In that collective moment of vulnerability and hope, the community found a renewed sense of purpose, a shared understanding that to dream was not merely an act of escapism, but a necessary ingredient of a life well lived. As seasons changed and time moved inexorably forward, Elena's life blossomed in unexpected ways. The key, though its magic had altered her fundamentally, remained safely tucked away in a small wooden box, a cherished reminder of the journey she had undertaken. Yet its true power was no longer confined to unlocking dusty doors in an attic. It had transformed into a metaphor, a living symbol of the resilience of the human spirit. Elena continued to write, paint, and create, each work an exploration of the delicate balance between memory and possibility. She became a mentor to those who had lost their way, sharing the secret that the key to unlocking forgotten dreams lay not in clinging to the past, but in embracing it as part of one's ongoing story. With every new creation, she reaffirmed the truth that while dreams might fade, they never vanish entirely. They merely wait for the right moment to be reborn. In time, Elena's influence spread beyond the confines of her small town. Her story was shared in literary journals and community gatherings, a beacon for dreamers everywhere. People spoke of the woman who had discovered a key that unlocked not only forgotten dreams, but also the vast potential for transformation. And as more hearts were touched by her journey, the legend of the key grew. a legend of hope, loss, and the enduring promise that every soul has within it the power to dream anew. Years later, as the first light of dawn bathed the town in a gentle golden glow, Elena stood on a hill overlooking the place she once called home. In her hand, she held a small, worn notebook filled with sketches, poems, and memories, a testament to the life she had reclaimed. Though the key itself had long since been retired to a place of quiet reverence, its legacy lived on in every dream that was nurtured, every creative spark that was ignited, and every heart that dared to remember. For Elena, the journey was far from over. Each day brought new challenges and new wonders, a continuous unfolding of moments both ordinary and extraordinary. And in that delicate interplay between what was forgotten and what was yet to come, she found a deep, abiding truth. That the true key to unlocking forgotten dreams lies not in the relic itself, but in the courage to face one's past, to embrace the fragile beauty of memory, and to step boldly into the realm of possibility. As the town awakened to the promise of another day, whispers of the legend drifted on the breeze, a timeless reminder that within each soul there exists a key capable of unlocking the most cherished dreams. And for all who listened, the promise was clear, that no dream once forgotten is ever truly lost, and that every heart holds the power to create a future filled with wonder. In a city of aging brick and gaslit streets, where fog clung to lampposts like secrets, there existed a theater whose existence was known only to those who dared to listen to the wind's hushed murmurs. It was said that on certain nights, when the moon was a mere sliver in the sky and the fog curled like spectral fingers through deserted alleys, a grand play unfolded behind heavy, moth-eaten drapes. But this was no ordinary stage production. In that clandestine venue, shadows took the place of actors, their performances weaving tales of longing, tragedy, and wonder. The theater's name had been lost in time, whispered instead only as the House of Shifting Silhouettes. Elias Marlowe was a young writer whose days were spent laboring over manuscripts in a cramped attic apartment, and whose nights were haunted by dreams of lost loves and forgotten histories. Despite his modest success in a world that prized boldness and spectacle, Elias longed for something transcendent, a spark of magic to ignite his creative flame. One damp evening, as he strolled through narrow cobblestone streets after a long day at his typewriter, he overheard a conversation in the shadow of an ancient archway. Two old men, their faces creased by time and secrets, whispered excitedly of a theater where shadows performed. Their words, laced with both awe and trepidation, spoke of a place where the past and present danced together in spectral harmony, and where each performance was said to reveal a hidden truth about the human soul. Intrigued and unable to shake the allure of the tale, Elias made inquiries among the city's more eccentric denizens. Every retelling painted the theater as a living relic, appearing only on nights when fate itself was in turmoil. With a heart both anxious and exhilarated, he resolved that he must find this theater and witness its enigmatic performance for himself. Days turned into restless nights as Elias scoured dusty libraries, questioned retired actors and weathered street performers, and followed the subtle clues left behind in cryptic graffiti and old folktales. One evening, as a sharp autumn wind rattled the window panes of his apartment, Elias discovered a slip of paper tucked between the pages of an antiquated book on local legends. The note, written in elegant, looping script, simply read, "When the fog blankets the city and the moon hides her face, come to the abandoned opera house on Delacroix Street. Let the shadows be your guide." Though the message was brief, it set his imagination ablaze. With a heart pounding in anticipation and a mind racing with possibilities, Elias prepared himself for a night that promised to unravel the boundaries between the seen and unseen. Delacroix Street lay on the outskirts of the city's busy heart, a place where once grand theaters now crumbled into melancholic ruins, and where the echoes of applause had long been replaced by silence. Elias navigated the winding lane until he arrived at a massive structure, its once polished facade now faded and scarred by time. Ivy clung to the stone, and shattered stained glass windows glowed dimly in the streetlight. There was an undeniable aura of mystery, as if the building itself remembered the vibrant passion of performances past. Pushing open a heavy, ornate door, Elias stepped into a cavernous foyer. Dust motes danced in the narrow beams of moonlight that managed to pierce the darkness. The air was thick with the scent of aged wood and forgotten dreams. At the far end of the hall, a grand staircase spiraled upward, inviting him into the depths of the theater. Every step he took echoed softly, as if heralding the arrival of a destined audience. At the stroke of midnight, the theater began to stir. In the velvet black darkness of the main auditorium, something imperceptible shifted, first as a tremor, then as a slow, deliberate motion. The stage, draped in heavy crimson curtains, seemed to breathe. As Elias settled into a worn red velvet seat, the lights dimmed and the silence deepened. Then, almost imperceptibly at first, the curtains parted, not by any visible hand, but by a force that defied explanation. From the opening, shadows began to emerge. They slithered across the stage like living ink, detached from any physical form, yet imbued with movement and emotion. At first, they were mere silhouettes, ghostly outlines that mimicked the positions of actors on a stage. But as they gathered momentum, they coalesced into scenes so vivid that it was as if time itself had folded upon the present. The shadows performed a tale of ancient grief and hope, a story of star-crossed lovers torn apart by fate, of heroic souls sacrificing themselves for a greater good, and of the inexorable passage of time that renders every memory bittersweet. The performance was wordless, yet every movement, every gesture, resonated with unspoken eloquence. It was a dance of light and darkness, where every flicker revealed an emotion long buried beneath the veneer of everyday life. Elias watched, transfixed, as the shadowy figures enacted scenes that mirrored the deepest recesses of his own heart. There were moments of raw beauty, a tender caress between shadows that spoke of love lost and found, and moments of anguish where the silhouettes writhed in silent despair. The theater was alive with the interplay of memory and myth, and Elias felt the barrier between his inner world and the performance dissolve. As the performance progressed, the shadows began to reveal more than just abstract tales. In the midst of the spectral ballet, a scene unfolded that sent shivers down Elias's spine. A solitary shadow, distinct from the others, took center stage. This figure was neither male nor female, but bore an ambiguous, timeless quality, a personification of memory itself. It moved with an elegance that belied the torment in its form, and as it performed, visions of the past materialized behind it like ghostly murals on the backdrop of the stage. Elias saw images of the theater's former glory, a time when it was filled with laughter, music, and the vibrant energy of countless lives intertwined by art. He witnessed the joy of a young couple sharing their first dance, the rapt attention of an audience enraptured by a moving soliloquy, and the passionate declarations of actors who bared their souls upon that very stage. And yet, intermingled with these moments of brilliance were images of sorrow, farewells, final bows, and the slow decay of dreams as time wore away even the brightest of memories. The shadow of memory moved among these scenes as if trying to reconcile the beauty of what once was with the inevitable loss of time. In that delicate interplay, Elias recognized his own longing to recapture moments of his youth, to reclaim the innocence and fervor he had once known. The performance was not just a story told by shadows, it was an invitation to remember, to feel, and perhaps even to heal. Moved beyond measure by what he had witnessed, Elias felt an inexplicable pull, a call to step beyond the role of passive observer. As the final act of the performance neared, the shadow figures on stage began to slow, their movements imbued with a deliberate, almost pleading grace. In that moment, the solitary shadow of memory advanced toward the front of the stage. The ambient glow of the theater seemed to focus upon it, and for a heartbeat, time itself stilled. A deep, resonant voice, without words yet laden with meaning, filled the space. It was as though the theater was speaking directly to the souls of those present. Elias felt his heart quicken as the voice reached out to him, inviting him to join in this transcendent communion of art and memory. The silent plea was clear: to embrace the beauty of all that had been lost, and to understand that every shadow on the stage was a fragment of life, both ephemeral and eternal. In that charged moment, Elias felt the weight of his own forgotten dreams and the pain of memories he had long tried to bury. The theater, in all its spectral grandeur, offered him a chance for redemption, a way to reconcile his past with his future. Yet the decision was fraught with risk. To step onto that stage was to surrender oneself to the inexorable flow of time, to allow the shadows to perform not only their ancient tale, but also to inscribe a new chapter in his own life. With trembling resolve, Elias rose from his seat. Every step he took toward the stage was a journey into the unknown, a crossing of a threshold where the tangible and the intangible merged. The audience, though composed of silent figures in the dark, seemed to hold its collective breath as he neared the edge of the stage. The lights softened, and a spectral hush fell over the theater. Standing at the edge of the stage, Elias hesitated for a long, agonizing moment. He recalled every longing, every regret, and every hope that had led him to this point. The shadows around him swirled in silent encouragement, beckoning him to embrace the mystery that lay ahead. With a deep breath, he stepped forward, his figure merging with the darkness as he crossed the boundary between the audience and the performance. In that instant, the theater transformed. The stage expanded into a vast, otherworldly arena where time and space bent in accordance with the rhythm of the performance. Elias felt himself both dissolved and reformed, his very essence intermingling with the shadows that danced around him. The sensation was at once terrifying and liberating, a rebirth in the crucible of art and memory. Now part of the living tableau, Elias experienced the theater in a way he had never imagined. Each movement of the shadows carried the weight of centuries of longing and loss. He felt the gentle caress of memories not his own, the tender warmth of a lover's farewell, the bittersweet joy of a long-forgotten reunion. And in turn, he offered his own memories to the performance: the laughter of childhood friends, the glow of a first love, the quiet hope that had sustained him through dark times. The performance took on new dimensions as Elias found himself improvising alongside the spectral actors. There was no script, only the raw, unspoken dialogue of souls striving to communicate beyond the confines of mortal language. With each gesture, he reclaimed a piece of himself that he had lost in the relentless march of time. The theater, with its shifting shadows, became a mirror for his inner world, reflecting the beauty and pain of a life lived in both light and darkness. The experience was transformative. Elias learned that the theater's true magic lay not merely in the spectacle of shadows performing on a stage, but in its power to evoke the profound truth that every moment, no matter how fleeting, was a treasure to be cherished. In the interplay of light and dark, joy and sorrow, the performance revealed that life itself was a series of acts, each one irretrievably lost as soon as it passed, yet eternal in the memory of the heart. As the performance drew to a close, the theater gradually returned to its original silent state. The shadows, having fulfilled their timeless narrative, slowly receded into the dark recesses of the stage. The spectral forms that had danced with the essence of Elias, and the other souls merged into one final vision, a panorama of memories, hopes, and dreams that shimmered like stardust before fading into the night. Elias found himself once again seated in the worn velvet chair, the echo of applause, though silent, reverberating in his soul. The theater around him was still and unchanging, as though the extraordinary performance had been but a dream. Yet within him, a transformation had taken root. He now carried the luminous burden of the performance, a newfound understanding that every moment, no matter how transient, contributed to the eternal tapestry of life. Long after that enigmatic night, the legend of the theater where shadows performed spread quietly through the city. Whispers of the house of shifting silhouettes circulated among artists, poets, and dreamers, each claiming to have seen its spectral play or felt its gentle invitation. Elias, forever changed by his experience, returned to his writing with a fervor that could only be born of having touched the essence of time itself. He penned a novel, a tapestry of memories and dreams that wove together the ephemeral beauty of moments lost and reclaimed. In every page, he sought to capture the magic of that extraordinary theater, where shadows danced and souls were laid bare. And though the physical theater eventually faded into legend, its impact endured in the hearts of all who believed that art could bridge the gap between the seen and the unseen. In the quiet moments of dusk, when the sky was awash with the colors of memory, Elias would sometimes feel a gentle tug, a reminder that, somewhere in the depths of the night, the theater awaited those brave enough to listen to the whispers behind the velvet. For in every shadow there lay a story, and in every stolen moment there glimmered the promise of eternal performance.